Processa Pharmaceuticals is trading right now at 6.54 USD, which represents a massive intraday surge of 117.78%. This is the kind of movement that forces everyone in the clinical stage biotech space to stop and pay attention, because a triple-digit gain in a single session is never an accident. While the broader market might be looking at the steady gains of Apple stock or the latest AI-driven run for NVIDIA stock, the real action today is happening in this micro-cap pocket, where clinical results are the only currency that actually counts. If you have been monitoring the healthcare sector, the expectation for a company like Processa was that they were just another small firm trying to refine existing chemotherapy. The reality we are seeing today is that they might have actually cracked the code on making standard cancer treatments significantly more effective, while simultaneously reducing the toxic side effects that usually break a patient's body before the cancer does. This massive price action is a direct reaction to their preliminary Phase 2 data for NGC-Cap, and it is a perfect example of why self-investing in the biotech sector requires a much higher level of scrutiny than just putting funds into Schwab Intelligent Portfolios and walking away. The core of today's move is centered on the data from their metastatic breast cancer trial. Most investors in the biotech field are used to seeing companies fail because their new molecule is too toxic or simply doesn't work. Processa is taking a different path. Instead of trying to invent a brand new drug from scratch, they are taking capecitabine, which is already a standard of care, and combining it with their own PCS6222. The expectation from the market was that this would show some incremental improvement, perhaps a slightly better safety profile. The reality delivered in this update is far more striking. The data from the first 16 patients shows that their combination treatment increases exposure to the active cancer-killing metabolites while reducing the exposure to the toxic catabolites by up to 10 times. When you tell the market that you can deliver 10 times less of the stuff that causes hand-foot syndrome while putting more of the actual medicine where it needs to go, you get a 117% move. It is a fundamental shift in how we think about chemotherapy delivery. While the retail crowd often flocks to the high-liquidity environment of the Robinhood app for quick trades on Tesla stock, institutional activity in a stock like Processa is where the real story lives. Today's volume is over 7 times the daily average, suggesting that we aren't just seeing a few day traders pushing the price around. This looks like institutional repositioning. When a stock jumps from $3 to over $6 in a few hours, it usually triggers a lot of algorithmic buying and forces short sellers to cover their positions immediately. For those using an individual brokerage or a sophisticated interactive broker's trading setup, the volatility here is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the gain is life-changing for early entries. On the other hand, the spread and the speed of the move make it incredibly dangerous for those trying to chase the top. If you are looking for investment help in these waters, you have to understand that this is not like a steady climb in a Fidelity Wealth Management account. This is raw, data-driven speculation that has been validated by actual clinical numbers. If you look at the trading platforms like the Fidelity mobile app or the SoFi trading platform today, you will see PCSA at the top of the gainers list. But to understand if this is sustainable, we have to look at the trading volume relative to the market cap. With a market cap that was under $10 million just a couple of days ago, it doesn't take much capital to move the needle. However, the volume we are seeing today suggests a total turnover of the share float. This is important because it sets a new price floor and a new psychological level for investors. The people who bought at $5 are now the ones defending that level. This creates a much different dynamic than the slow, grinding price action we see with something like a Fidelity ETF. Here, every penny represents a massive shift in valuation. Comment below how many shares of Processa Pharmaceuticals you currently hold, or if you were planning to wait for a retracement before entering a position. It's always interesting to see how the community handles these high-velocity moves. The broader context of online investing today often pushes people towards the safety of large-cap tech, but the biotech sector is where the most significant valuation gaps are found. When you look at what Processa is actually doing, their business model is remarkably lean. They focus on next-generation chemotherapy, or NGC. This involves taking FDA-approved drugs that already have known efficacy but are limited by their toxicity. By modifying the metabolism of these drugs, they aim to improve the clinical outcome without the massive risk of developing a new drug for 10 years and having it fail in phase 3. This strategy is what makes them a unique candidate for someone who likes self-investing but wants a more calculated risk than a total shot in the dark. Their pipeline also includes NGC-Gem and NGC-Erie, which follow the same logic for different types of cancer. The market is currently pricing in the success of the breast cancer trial, but the real value might lie in the fact that this platform could potentially be applied across the entire oncology landscape. When we talk about online investing, we usually focus on fees and ease of use, which is why platforms like the Robinhood app or the SoFi Active Investing app are so popular. But the real edge in this market comes from understanding the difference between a clinical update and a final approval. Today's news is a preliminary look at Phase 2 data. It is very positive, yes, but there is still a long road ahead. The company expects to conduct a formal interim analysis in early 2026. This creates a long-term catalyst that investors will be watching. The expectation is that the final data will mirror these preliminary results. If the reality falls short even slightly in early 2026, the stock will likely give back all today's gains and more. That is the risk profile of clinical-stage biotech. It is not for the faint of heart, and it certainly isn't something you'd find in a conservative Fidelity IRA's portfolio. It's a high-stakes bet on the underlying science. Let's look at the financials for a moment. In their most recent Q3 2025 earnings report, Processa actually beat analyst expectations. They reported an earnings per share loss that was narrower than what the street was predicting. While they don't have revenue yet, which is standard for this stage of a biotech firm, they have been managing their cash burn effectively. They've used financing rounds to keep the lights on and the trials moving. For an investor using a Fidelity trading platform or Interactive Brokers platform, the key metric isn't the current revenue, but the cash runway. Do they have enough cash to get to the next major data readout in early 2026? Based on their recent filings, they seem to be in a stable position for the immediate future, but the massive jump in stock price today gives management a perfect opportunity to raise more capital. Don't be surprised if you see a secondary offering in the coming days. It's a classic move. The stock price spikes on good news, and the company sells shares to lock in the funding they need for the next 3 years of trials. The broader macro environment for biotech has been tough over the last year, with high interest rates making it expensive for pre-revenue companies to borrow. But as the market begins to anticipate a shift in monetary policy, small-cap stocks like PCSA are starting to breathe again. When you compare the movement of a stock like this to the steady, almost boring performance of Fidelity mutual funds, you see the massive disparity in risk and reward. Some people prefer the slow and steady approach of SoFi ETFs or SoFi robo-advisor strategies. But for those who are active in the market, searching for the next big move, the biotech sector provides opportunities that you just can't find in the S&P 500. It requires a deep understanding of the regulatory environment and the clinical trial process. You have to be able to read a medical abstract and understand what a 10-fold reduction in toxic metabolites actually means for a patient's survival and quality of life. Processa's strategy of utilizing its next-generation chemotherapy approach is designed to achieve high-value milestones more efficiently. They aren't trying to find a needle in a haystack, they are trying to make the needle sharper. This approach reduces the development risk significantly. If the drug already kills cancer, the only question is whether you can deliver it more effectively. That is a much easier question to answer than whether a brand new molecule will interact with the human body in an unpredictable way. This is why the institutional interest is picking up. Professional investors look for these kinds of de-risked opportunities. They might hold a massive position in Apple stock for stability, but they'll take a speculative position in something like Processa for the potential 5-bagger return. It's a balanced approach to portfolio management that many retail investors try to emulate through their own individual brokerage accounts. Looking ahead, the possible scenarios for Processa are quite distinct. In the best-case scenario, the early 2026 interim analysis confirms today's preliminary data. If that happens, you could see another massive leg up, potentially putting the stock in the double digits. This would likely attract a partnership from a major pharmaceutical company or even a buyout offer. Big Pharma is always looking for ways to extend the life of their existing oncology franchises, and Processa's NGC platform is the perfect tool for that. In the worst-case scenario, the larger patient pool shows that the side effects are more significant than initially thought, or the efficacy doesn't hold up over a longer period. This would lead to a rapid decline in price, as the entire bull case for the company is built on this specific trial. The tension between these two outcomes is what drives the volatility we see on the Robinhood Investments page today. If you are currently using investing sites to find your next move, remember that the biotech sector operates on its own timeline. It doesn't care about the quarter